Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 1999 Project. So I made a bit of a boo-boo. Last week I teased that the next installment of the 99 Project would include movies like Sixth Sense, Mystery Men, and Iron Giant, and the remake of the Thomas Crown Affair. Those movies are coming, but I read out the tease for 2 weeks from that video's point instead of the one immediately following up. I still have one movie that I have to talk about before I talk about all of those movies. It was an oversight on my part. All that I can say to that is,
my bad.
sometimes I forget to look at my calendar. It happens. I'm sorry about that, but all of those movies that I just mentioned will be reviewed next week. This week, though, I just have one movie to review, and oh boy, is it a chore and a half. It was such a slog to get through, and it was only 90 minutes. Honest, just let's rip the Band-Aid off now. Dick, the Unmaking of a President.
As Dick.
Hi.
Got the cookies?
Uh,
Yeah!
Dick was directed by Andrew Fleming, and it starred future Oscar nominees Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams, as well as Dan Hedaya. It tells the story of two young high school girls who just so happen to be studying in a hotel room, specifically at the Watergate Hotel, which I don't think I need to tell you what the Watergate Hotel was and what it was all about. They just so happen to stumble upon, and it is heavily implied that they are, in fact, the thing that causes Watergate, and are potentially Deep Throat. Yeah, 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 that's the movie. If I sound like I don't want to talk about this movie, it's because I don't. This movie was just, it was not funny. It was meant to be funny, but it wasn't. It was meant to be a farcical comedy, but man, just it fell flat on its face. The one thing that I can confidently say is that Kirsten Dunst, Michelle Williams, and Dan Hedaya are all trying. Dan Hedaya, in brief moments, actually does do a pretty good Richard Nixon voice. However, we live in a world now where we have Shane Gillis's Trump impression, and that just beats all other presidential impressions by a country mile. So Dan Hedaya just sitting there, like, he almost sounded like Bernie Sanders at points. Like, I was saying to myself, when the crook from Point Break, who wears a Richard Nixon mask and says, "I'm not a crook," is somehow at times more of an accurate portrayal of Richard Nixon than Dan Hedaya in the movie, that's not a good thing. This movie is not only not funny, but it's just plain stupid. And I guess that was the intent, but even at a certain point, the suspension of disbelief just ends at a certain point, and you're just sitting there thinking to yourself, just ban these girls from the White House. Why are you trying to curry favor with them? And once again, I want to hammer home that I think the point of the movie was just trying to hammer home the fact that Richard Nixon was dumb and that his administration was dumb and they tried to do a bad thing. I can at least agree with doing the bad thing part, but but if you're going to make a movie about Watergate, actually make a movie about Watergate. Hell, they've made a couple of good ones. All the President's Men and The Post spring to mind, except for the ending, which is just basically a Washington Post commercial. It's also surreal, too, for no conceivable reason. There is a dream sequence in which Michelle Williams' character Arlene is on a beach, dressed up as a mid-1970s-esque hippie with the peace earrings and all of that. And then in comes Richard Nixon riding a horse, all while soundtracked to Barry White music, and they dance with each other. I am not on any illicit substances, I am of sound mind and body, and I have drank nearly a gallon of water today. I cannot make something like that up. I feel like at times they were just trying to make fun of, but also condemn Nixon when there have been several movies already doing that, And I'll just go out of my way to recommend now Nixon on Nixon. It's a documentary that was made by HBO where it's basically just Nixon's conversations that were recorded by him with his inner circle. What he said when he only thought friendly ears were listening. It's a lot of coarse language and a lot of anti-Semitism, but it's a compelling watch. I recommend it. I was just face palming so much I almost was afraid my face was going to turn into the question mark. Like, what are we even doing here, people? This movie's horrid. It it doesn't even age well when you consider just we we've done better than this. Like political satire is fine, but if you're gonna do it, like make it funny. Like just please make it funny. The thing that I can safely say is that Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams would both go on to do much better things after this movie. Kirsten Dunst would go on to be MJ in the Spider-Man films, it's the Sam Raimi ones, that is, and Michelle Williams would go on to have an acclaimed career, and like I mentioned, be nominated for an Oscar and win several more others. So this was just a stepping stone for them, thank God. Off to all of you, what did you all think of Dick? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. Insert your own jokes here. Next week, I am going to be reviewing Sixth Sense, the Thomas Crown Affair remake, The Iron Giant, and others. So stay tuned for all of that. Next week is going to be a much more epic week for the 99 Project. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'm not a crook. I don't frickin' know.